You ever wonder why some people seem to pull these incredibly precise, high-leverage outputs from AI, while the rest of us get stuck with something kind of generic or, just slightly off? The answer isn't some mythical perfect prompt. It's actually a completely different way of thinking about the interaction itself. So let's dissect this system. Okay, so first things first, we've got to tear down this belief that so many of us have, this idea that a single perfectly written prompt is the secret to getting what you want. Think about this for a second. The model isn't really misunderstanding you. In most cases, it is perfectly, literally executing on ambiguous instructions. So the failure point isn't the model's intelligence, it's the lack of precision in how we frame our own goals to begin with. And look, this friction you feel between what's in your head and what the AI spits out, that's not just a you problem. It's a universal pattern that shows up in pretty much every professional field you can imagine. I mean, whether you're a developer trying to squash a bug, an analyst pulling a report, or a designer trying to get a project brief just right, you have felt this. We all have. That struggle to get the AI to produce the exact thing you're picturing, it's a universal experience. It has nothing to do with your job title. It's all about the mechanics of the interaction itself. So, to get those better results, we have to understand what's actually happening under the hood. This is not a simple command and response transaction. It's really a process of what you could call state steering. And this gets to the heart of it. What is conversational state? Well, think of it this way. The AI doesn't have a memory like we do. Instead, every single message you send updates its active context window, and that context directly shapes or conditions everything it says next. Your next prompt isn't a fresh start. It's just an update to an ongoing conversation. And this slide just lays out the two different mindsets perfectly. The novice is trying to issue one single perfect command, basically forcing the model to guess all the missing details and constraints. It's a huge risk. But the expert, they treat it like steering a ship. Each message they send is a small, careful turn of the rudder, slowly and incrementally guiding the conversation exactly where it needs to go. And with every single turn, the alignment that's better and better. So let's look at how this plays out in practice. It's a simple but incredibly powerful system, the iterative loop. You start with your initial idea. You're probably going to get a flawed output, but that's okay. It's a starting point. Then, and this is key, you provide specific corrective feedback. That feedback updates the model's state, which leads to a much more refined, much better output. It's a cycle of constant refinement. Which brings us to a really crucial point. The quality of your feedback. It all comes down to the signal-to-noise ratio. Vague comments like, make this better or be more detailed, that's pure noise. It just adds more ambiguity into the system. But precise feedback, that's the signal. Saying, use a bulleted list format or remove all speculation about future events actually reduces the model's options and narrows the path toward the correct answer. And all of this leads to a pretty fundamental shift in your mindset. You're not just pulling an answer out of a database here. You're collaborating with a tool to shape a process. The most powerful, high-leverage results happen when you start guiding the generation, not just demanding the final product. But what happens when we don't do this? What happens when we ignore these mechanics and just keep chasing that perfect prompt? Well, there's a real, tangible cost. We call it the ambiguity tax. Now, this is a conceptual number, not a hard statistic, but it represents a very real thing, right? It's that huge portion of our professional time that gets wasted trying to fix and refine outputs from our own misaligned prompts. Basically, fighting a tool that's just doing exactly what it was vaguely told to do. And here is where you pay that tax. It's in the hours you spend on endless revisions. It's in the bad analysis that comes from trusting a shallow summary. It's every time we blame the tool for what was really our own lack of instructional precision. This inefficiency doesn't just waste our time, it actively stifles our creativity and our progress. This quote just perfectly sums it up. A bad final output isn't some sudden random event. It's the end result of a long chain of accumulated instructional misalignment, one ambiguous prompt at a time. So, how do we get out of paying this tax? The solution is to adopt the mental model that expert users have. It's a structural change in how you think, not just what you happen to type. The real objective here is not to learn some new prompt template you copied off the internet. It's to build a more accurate internal model inside your own head of what is actually happening in the conversation. Once you understand the system, you can master it. The first principle of this mindset is absolute clarity. You simply can't ask the model for something you haven't clearly defined for yourself first. You have to ask yourself, what are the exact constraints here? What's the output format I need? What's the real goal? Clarity of your intent has to come before the clarity of your words. Second, you have to change your expectations. That first response you get back from the AI, it's not the final answer, it's the first draft. That's it. This one little shift in perspective makes the whole process of iteration feel normal. A flawed output is no longer a failure. It's just the starting point for refinement. And third, experts don't trust blindly. They build their own checks and balances directly into their workflow. They're always asking, how am I going to verify this output? What outside sources can I check? They design a process to confirm the AI's work because they treat it as a very capable but also very fallible collaborator. Okay, so now let's turn the lens back around on our own processes. To really put this stuff into practice, we need to do a little bit of honest self-examination. Seriously, think about your own workflow. Do you usually just take the first or second thing it gives you? Or are you actually engaging in a multi-turn conversation, deliberately steering the model toward a more precise result? And when you do iterate, what's the nature of that feedback? Is it just vague noise, try again or do better? Or is it that precise signal we talked about, correcting a very specific aspect of the format or the tone or the content? And finally, this brings us to the most important question of all. Are you operating like a commander, just issuing a one-shot directive and then hoping for the best? Or are you acting like a guide, a co-creator, skillfully steering that conversational state toward an outcome that you've already clearly defined? Because the difference between those two internal models, that's everything.